Hello, everyone, and welcome to the StarCityGames.com Open Series in Cleveland. I'm Glenn Jones. I'm joined in the booth by Dan Novak. Dan, welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You kind of caught fire on Twitter earlier today. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I didn't. I wasn't aware of that.
No, this mono green deck was very popular when we had it on the booth. Everyone was just crying out for the deck tech, so have to do it, obviously. And it's a very cool deck. Let's dive right in. Starting off, you've got Colossal Hydra, and this is easily one of the better, if not the best, Colossal Hydra decks I've ever seen. Gavany Township was, cool and all, but you've got a lot of cards that have very specific and very potent synergies.
Yeah, this deck is just bursting with synergy. As you can see, we have Hunter, Ooze, Experiment 1, Deadbridge Goliath, which you saw in the feature match I used to perfection. And the new World Eater. I'm not even going to pronounce the P word.
Holocranos.
He's got it. Yeah, the Hydra just combos with all of those creatures. And with a green deck ramping up, you want to hit a fat creature early that just kills them quick. Hydra's the best one with everything else in the deck. Comes down, honestly, this deck can actually get it out on turn 2 with the right combination of cards.
Really?
Turn 1 Mystic, turn 2 play 2 Burning Tree Emissaries off the Forest and the Mystic, have the Shrine land down here, activate for 5, Hydra. That's obviously very unlikely, but it is a possibility.
And probably the most horrifying thing that can happen to anyone in Standard right now, by far. You thought, like, triple Burning Tree Emissary was bad. Jeez. That's a whole new level. One of the things I like the most about this deck is definitely the synergy with the bigger counter guys. Like Deadbridge Goliath, Colossal Hydra is obviously almost just lethal in and of itself once that guy's in the graveyard.
Yeah, turning on Devotion for Nylea? Yeah, turning on the Devotion for Nylea, comboing with the Hunter, and just being another fat guy for 4 that comes out quick and doesn't Legend Rule the Hydra. It just hit a sweet spot in the curve that was needed.
Yeah, I'm digging the Deadbridge Goliath. I don't think we've seen the last of him.
Yeah, plus the Scavenge was pretty insane.
You mentioned Nylea, and this deck is, it seems like a deck that obviously didn't start as like, let's try and build a Nylea deck, but she works so well in it. You've got so many, colored manas in your casting cost.
Yeah.
You've got the Burning Tree Emissaries, you've got Colonian Tuskers, you've got all of these other guys, Boon Satyrs, Polocranos. Like, it's so easy to get Nylea on. You need at like 2 creatures, maybe 3 at most.
Yeah, there are many times where I've attacked with her on turn 5.
That's serious business.
And it's a necessary evil. Like, against the creature decks, it allows your guys to not trade off. And against control, it's a threat that hangs around after Supreme Verdict, because Supreme Verdict is one of the major problems for this deck. Like Mutavault, Boon Satyr, which we're going to get to, and Nylea are the best cards you have in the main deck against Supreme Verdict.
Sure, you're just trying to chip in for damage while keeping some amount of pressure on the board even after the Verdict each time. That makes a lot of sense. And the trample in this deck is also, no slouch.
Oh, yeah. You've
got a bunch of gigantic creatures, and Elspeth is catching fire. Those 1/1 tokens, not such a big deal if you got an Nylea going.
That came up, and it also came up with Boros Reckoner.
Sure.
Yeah, like, that guy was a 10-10. If I didn't have Nylea, I was taking 10 to the face if I attacked in.
Well, solve that problem right quick. You mentioned Boon Satyr. I feel like this guy is one of the better cards in Theros, but hasn't found a great home yet. This deck seems like definitely one of, if not the perfect home.
It's great here. A lot of people here today are playing Advent of the Worm, and that helps my guys to either trade off or get through Advent of the Worm. And like I said, Supreme Verdict is big. Flashing in like on their turn, so they have to either use their mana for counter spells, or the Detention Sphere guy having a threat that can attack the next turn is big. Bestowing with a Supreme Verdict in the format is very good. It's sweet spot on the curve with Elvish Mystic into that. It's good turn to play. It's a really good card.
And last but not least, let's move to Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. You already said the most broken thing you could possibly do with it, I think. But in this deck, you actually can make a fair bit of use of it as a gigantic mana sink. You've got the Deadbridge Goliath is not cheap. The Polocranos, obviously a pretty expensive ability. Bestow is 5 mana is 5 mana, and then Nylea, if you can just turn out multiple activations of her return, that gets very dangerous too.
It definitely helped out in that feature match, being able to activate Nylea a bunch of times. But the major thing was it allowed me to play all the cards I got off of Garrick during Sideboard, because the games, if I don't kill them by turn 4 or 5, they can tend to go long. And that being able to generate that kind of card advantage and being able to use the mana to play all those cards every turn pulls you back over the top.
That's actually a really potent synergy, and I'm kind of excited to see it. I think that Nykthos is a really cool mana engine. I expect we'll see a lot of decks utilizing it. This is the first green one we've seen. We've seen some red ones already. I think I've even seen a few black ones posted, although I haven't seen anything super
fact,
spicy.
too, that it doesn't come into play tapped and taps for a colorless doesn't make it worthless if you don't have a high devotion count. It's still land that taps for colorless.
Yes, it's a reasonable land, can cast a lot of your spells still.
Yeah.
But when it goes into overdrive, it does some really impressive stuff. All right, Dan, thank you for sharing the deck with us.
No problem. Thanks for
good
having
luck
me.
in the remainder of the tournament.